Good afternoon, all. Today is your opportunity to build the tomorrow you want. With this motivating quote, I'm S. Dvyashri, final year student of Department of IT, Dr. MGR Educational and Research Institute. Welcome you all to the guest lecture on Advanced Web Technologies. I call upon Dr. T. Nalini ma'am, Professor of Department of IT, to deliver the welcome address.
Thank you, Divyasri. Good afternoon to everyone. Today we are conducting the guest lecture on Advanced Web Technology with Association of Information Technologies. First of all, I would like to thank our management to given this opportunity to conduct the guest lecture. These type of the guest lectures will help the student to improve their skills. So all the students attend these type of the guest lectures regularly and improve your skills. I'm wishing this event to success because this is the second event we are conducting this semester. Once again, I am wishing everyone to success the events. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Today we have with us an eminent guest speaker, Mrs. K. Nithya, Assistant Professor of her own department, to deliver the lecture on Advanced Web Technologies. It's my pleasure to introduce her to the gathering. Mrs. K. Nithya completed Bachelor of Technology from Anand Institute of Higher Education, Chennai, and she completed her Masters of Technology from Satyabama University, Chennai, and currently she pursuing a PhD from Anna University, Chennai. And Mrs. K. Nithya has about 12 years of teaching experience from different colleges, and currently she working as an assistant professor in Department of IT in Dr. MGR Educational and Research Institute, and she had a wide knowledge on in the following domains: and data structure, operating system, computer networks, object oriented analysis and design, software engineering, and system software, computer architecture, and web technology. Mrs. K. Nithya has attended many workshops and faculty development program, and she had published many research articles in indexed international and national journals. I once again welcome our esteemed guest lecturer, Mrs. K. Nithya. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you, Divishri. First, I would like to thank our department head, Dr. Kanya ma'am, and our event coordinator, Mrs. C. Tamilchervi ma'am, for giving this opportunity. So today's topic is advanced web technologies. So today's topic is advanced web technologies. So first we need to understand what is web technology. So look at this. So as, web technologies refers to the various tools and techniques that are utilized in various process of communication between different types of devices. Not only the single devices, focused to the different types of devices over the internet. So basically, web technologies are this techniques covers the client side techniques and server side techniques. If it is a client side techniques in the sense HTML, CSS, JavaScript, these are all the languages will come. But for the server side technologies, can focus the ASP, JSP, ASP.NET, servlets concepts, cookies, sessions. Lots of technologies are available, but here I'm focusing few technologies. So, like we have seen in the previous slide, Java Servlet is a server side programming. So, before enter into this, we have to know so what is web server. Okay, at the same time, as a students, you have to know the difference between server and web server. So, if it is a server in the sense, it is a central place where the informations and programs are stored and accessed by any one of the applications over the network. So this is the general concept of server. So yeah, For web server is a server with accept all the request of data and send the relevant document. So always the web server it accept all type of data and send the relevant document. In turn, whereas some of the application services it's contain the enterprise Java bean container component as well as run the enterprise applications. So again, the web server provides the runtime environment for web applications, but the application servers provide the runtime environment for enterprise applications. This is the small difference between web server and application server. Okay. So next, the web server's response can be, it may be two response are there. So the response may be static or dynamics. So based on these two, we will categorize the response. So if it is a static, pages will remain. Try to understand if it is a static, pages will remain same until some changes do manually. Okay, so pages will remain the same type of changes until some changes it manually. So we can consider our university side. Okay, so what are all the details loaded by the admin or the web developer, that informations only we are seeing or we are retrieving. So this concept is coming under the static. So static HTML document is retrieved from the file systems and returned to the client. I mean, what are all the details it's manually updated, the entire details we can, as a client, we are retrieving. But the dynamic, excuse, but the dynamic for each and every request, the response may be different. So in order to produce the dynamic content, we are using the Java servlets. At Java servlet concept. So the dynamic web page contents, the pages are different for different visitors. This is the major difference between static and dynamic. So Java Servlet is one of the technology for producing dynamic server response. So the servlet is a Java class instantiated by the server to produce a dynamic response. So next, look at this diagram. This diagrams it is represent the static and dynamic web pages. So look at this. If it is a static web page, the first two communications are applicable for the static. So web browsers, we are sending the request with the help of HTTP protocol. We are sending the request. The data are available in the web server. With the help of some protocols, I mean the HTTP protocols, we are getting the response from the web server. But if it is a dynamic, so web page content, dynamic web pages content of the pages are different for different visitors. So look, next one, servlets overview. So we will see the role of servlet and servlets overview. So in general, so Java servlets are programs that run on a web or application servers. This act as a middle layer between request coming from web browser or other HTTP client and the databases or applications on the HTTP server. So request coming from any one of the browser. So with the help of HTTP request, we are giving the request to the web server. It will incorporate with the request object. These details will send to the servlet. Here, as usual, the reverse process. I mean, modified response object details sent to the web servers. From the web server, the help of the HTTP protocol, we are retrieving the informations with the help of HTTP response object. So next one, look at this. When a servlet starts, it is instantiately servlet. So each server can have a multiple servlets running on it. So when the server receives the HTTP request, from the client, it determines that the need for the dynamic response. So if the dynamic response is required, that it select the appropriate servlet, because n numbers of servlet is running over the Java applications. Then after that, the server creates the two objects. It may be the request object or response object, and passes them to the we are passes them to some method. The method is, it may be the get method or service method. Then after that, the servlets added the informations. The information is response object informations, because via the response object information only we are retrieving the informations. So the server generate HTTP response based on the information stored in response object and to the corresponding client. Client may be the user. Look at this. Here I am considering one simple example program for servlets. So in order to create the servlet, look at this, the same process. So in order to create the servlet, first thing we need to do, create the classes. So classes that should be extended from the HTTP servlet class. So we are creating some classes, but the class should be extended from the HTTP servlet class. Then after that, the next thing, we need to do some implementations, or implement the Doget method, or Doget method and service method, like this. Look at this Doget method. Here I am using the Doget method. So Doget method takes two arguments. So two arguments in the sense, first one HTTP servlet request argument, after that HTTP servlet response. So two arguments. So HTTP servlet response object, it is used to hold the response that needs to be sent to the servers. So these details carried out by HTTP servlet response object. Then after that, all the servlets should handle the two exception. I mean the first class extension part over. Then after that, we are importing some services. Yeah, this service, this method having some properties. Then after that, so all the servlets should having two exception handlings. So exception handling in the sense, here in servlet we are using servlet exceptions and IO exceptions. If it is a servlet exception, so this is used whenever the servlet is not available, or some instantiated, or some other problems. So this time only the servlet IO exceptions will boom up. Okay, so the IO exception is used when everyone or every IO exception is used whenever any IO related issues or IO related problems will come now, that time can prefer the IO exceptions. Look at this servlet exceptions and IO exceptions. So these exceptions, production servlet should catch these type of exceptions. Then after that, the response object should be constructed in this order. Look at this. Here I am using some response object. So response object should be constructed in some following order. So we need to set the content type. Look at this HTTP content type. Okay. So set the content type of response using the response dot set content type. This one, response dot set content type method. So usually it will be in the form of HTML. So next thing, we need to create the output stream. Look at this output stream to write the content in the response object what used in the get writer method. So once again I am repeating. So we need to set the content type of response using the response dot set content method Usually we will in the form of HTML we will write this. Then after that create the output stream. Look at this, get dot writer. We are creating the output stream to write the content in the response object using the some method. The method is get writer method. So whatever we need to write on the response, we can write in the servlet out object. What are all the details we need to write in the response object, we can write in the servlet servlet out objects. Okay? Look at this, servlet out dot println. So whatever we are writing inside the println method, so look at this method. So whatever we are writing inside the println method, um, that will be in turn written on the corresponding object. The object is response object. So all the contents from the server will be sent to the client or in the form of HTML format. So calling from point of view, we are using the HTML. Now display the client browsers on the HTML document. So the HTML So HTML generated calling print method or println, the servlet print writer will print writer object will assign all the details. Next one, servlet versus Java applications. So servlet versus Java applications, in the sense, in servlet we are not using the main method. I mean, do not have a main. So entry points to the servlet code is via only calling the method of Doget method. Okay, so via the Doget method only can call the servlet concept. So the servlet interaction with end user is indirect via the request response object application programming interface. So actually the HTTP request and response processing is handled by server. Okay. So the primary servlet output is typically we can use in HTML. Running process of servlets is a very simple process. So normally we can compile our servlet program, and after that our class file generated. Once if the class file has been if you are executing in the Tomcat server now, you can prefer this procedures. Or you can, if you are using the Glassfish server or Apache servers, now the procedures is somewhat different. Okay. So once if you are compiling your servlet program, one class files will be generated. You can copy that files and load it into the class directory. Then only you can restart the or enable the Tomcat web servers. So once the once the Tomcat server enabled now, we can we can compile the your Java program. Okay. So here in my class servlet hello class I'm using, that's why I'm running this I'm preferring servlet hello. Inside the servlet folder I import all those things. Here I'm using Tomcat server. So Tomcat server enabled port number is 8080, that's why I'm using localhost 8080. Yeah. So next one, dynamic content. So dynamic content, here also the same procedures. So whatever all the contents from the server will be sent to the client in the form of HTML already I said. Okay. Now let us see the how can create the dynamic content. So dynamic contents, in the sense, to create the dynamic content we need a variable. Without variable, dynamic content calling process is not possible. So to create the dynamic content, we need a variables, and the variables values can be changed dynamically. Look at this. So initially in private int variable values, visit I assigned 0. Then after that again and again the same client or different type of clients accessing some pages now, automatically the visit value will be increased, depends on the request. So here we have created the visit variable to hold the number of times, that I mean the visit variable hold the number of times the website is visited. In the Look at this. In the Doget method, the visit value can be incremented. I mean, whenever the Doget method calling, automatically it will initiate the print writer servlet out it equal to response dot get writer. So automatically the visit value will be incremented. So for each time the servlet is being accessed, the Doget method so will be called. Okay. Look at this. Here the visit value will be incremented. So these concepts mainly preferred for dynamic web page generation. So that should be written in, look at this, this should be written in servlet out.println method. Look at this. So at last, for the dynamic content, we will get the output like hello world visit since more than 4 times or 5 times. It depends on the user request. So then after that, servlet life cycles. So the servlet life cycle, I mean the servlet API life cycle method having four methods are available: init method, service method, destroy method. Three init method. This one called when servlet is instantiated. So whenever the servlet instantiated, that time only init method will call. Okay. So next to the service method, this method called directly by the server when the HTTP request is received. I mean once HTTP request is received, this method called directly by the server. Okay. In service method, Doget method, lots of sub methods are available. So here I consider, generally I can consider the service method. That last, destroy method. The role of destroy method, when server shut down, automatically the destroy method will call. I mean the meaning is in the entire process completed. So this diagram focus on, excuse. So this diagram focus on position of servlets in a web applications. So position of servlets in a web applications, in the sense, look at this. Here via the browsers as a client, I'm giving some requests. This one via the protocol, I mean the HTTP protocol handed over to the HTTP server. Okay, the details is again the HTTP server will calling the servlet programs. They, from the database it will retrieve all those things. Look at this. Next one. Up to this, we can elaborately discuss the servlets concepts. So now we will see the sessions concept. So session, it is simply we can say many interactive websites spread user data entry out over the several pages. So lots of examples are there. Here I have considered few examples. Basically, sessions simply means a particular interval of times. So session particular interval of time. So the session tracking is a way. So session tracking is a way to maintain the state of data and user. So the servlet container uses this interfaces. I mean session interfaces. The servlet container uses this interfaces to create the session between an HTTP client and HTTP server. So it creates the interface between HTTP client and HTTP server. So the session persists for specified time period. At the same time, across more than one connections or pages request to flow the entire users. So the problem is, how does the server know which user generated the HTTP request, because n numbers of sessions are available. Nowadays we didn't use the single sessions. N numbers of sessions are available. So what type of problem will arise in the sense, how does the server know which user generated the HTTP request? So session must have a capability to identify the HTTP request details. Could not reply on standard HTTP header to identify the issues. So look at this. Here I'm considering two clients. You can imagine 3 or 4 or 10 clients. So here server is running here. So as a client, with the help of HTTP protocol, I'm generating some requests. I mean, it may be the server side programming now. The process execution process like this only. HTTP request we are sending, but we are getting the response from the server, not a web server. We are getting some response from the server. So the server, while sending the HTTP response, it will add the session ID for the single communication. Okay, I mean single communications in the sense the particular applications. For the application X, the response came at the same time. Session ID also came. Okay, session ID is 4235 for the application X. So again, now the client got the notification like we are received the session ID from the server. Then only the client machine attach the along with request with session ID. Then this message is sent to the server. Okay, then only the server will give the HTTP response message to the client. Okay, so first one process is completed in order that client and server will execute for the session concept. Okay, the same process. Looking here, the server send back a new unique session ID when the record has none. Again, the same ID because now the client know the session ID details. That's way the client append these two details. I mean the HTTP request with session ID. Append these two details and will send to the server machine. Look at this. Now this the entire client and server communications for the single session. So the server knows that all of these records are from the same client. The set of requests is known as session. This is called sessions. So again the server knows that all of these requests, I mean the 4 requests are available. So these requests are from the same client. The set of requests is known as session. For client 2, the same process but same server, but n numbers of process is possible to execute. Look at this. Here the same client is different but server is same. Is sending the HTTP request, but the session ID is different. Session ID again the server sending the HTTP response with the corresponding ID details. So look at this. For the session creations, so session creations here we are using the get session method. So the role of get session method, this one already I said now the normal servlet programming. Here the get session method, this one returns the HTTP session object associated with the HTTP request, because via the HTTP request only we are embedding the session details. So create the HTTP session object. If no valid session ID, the HTTP request will destroy. So otherwise, again the same ID process will continue until the session expire or until the entire process termination. Look at this. The same process. How many times? I mean the new sessions created or old sessions continue here. Look at this, the client and server. So here we are considering one session time period for one set of communications. So initially we are enabling after the class enhancement from the class declaration part. Then after that, get method initiator get request with the corresponding ID details. The server machines only intimate the sign in page details plus corresponding ID details. Once the client received the sign in page details and session ID details, it will post, I mean the client will post the post request and session ID details. Then only the server came a conclusion like thank you for visiting the page. I mean the one session period completed. Next, get again the upcoming process again and again. If you want to do some activities now, it will be considered like small sessions. Look at this, the first session details. After that, the second part from the client side post records and session ID. It the server conclusion point of view, thank you page details. With the help of this attribute only, this one is possible. I mean the string island here I'm using some object, and with the help of this method calling this object details, I mean get attribute of sign in. Via this we are calling the string object. Okay, the session attribute is a name or value. I mean it contains two information, name corresponding value. If you are preferring some text box now, submit corresponding value. So initially session attributes have a null characters or null values is assigned in a again and again visiting time, the session values will be incremented. So next one, cookies. So basically cookies in the sense it is a name or value path that is a set of server and written on the client machine. Okay. So the cookies here cookies technology facilitates the uh, identification of users based on their informations and preferences, and provide the means of personalized websites. Okay. So the cookies technology, basically the cookies technologies refers to the use of HTTP cookies or web cookies by the website. So cookies, in general, cookies is a piece of information or piece of text that is sent by the server to a web content. So cookies are created using cookies class persistence in the Servlet API. I mean Servlet application programming interfaces, and cookies are added to respond object using add cookies method. One predefined methods are available in cookies for cookies concept. So once again, so cookies are created using the cookies class persistent in Servlet API. At the same time, cookies are added to the some response object that using the add cookies methods. So while generating any one of the modern websites or server side programming related applications, so compulsory you have to know the cookies and session tracking details, EJP and ASP.NET details. Okay. So this method spends the cookies informations over the HTTP response streams. The entire HTTP response streams, the cookies informations will be loaded. Okay. So the cookies method is used to accept the cookies that is added into the response object. Added into the any one of the response object. So here most clients store each cookies retrieve in its file systems. At the same time, send each cookies back to the server that send it is part of the cookies header field and subsequent HTTP request. So look at this. in cookies also, similar to the sessions, the same concepts is available. I mean, HTTP request and HTTP response corresponding ID details. Cookies will load the information details. So basically, we will see the different types of cookies. So in general, so magic cookies and HTTP cookies, two types of cookies are available. I mean, the initial point of view, they used magic cookies. Then after that, nowadays we are preferring normal HTTP cookies. So magic cookies are an old computing term. Magic cookies is one of the old computing term that refers to the packet of informations that are sent and received without any changes. So commonly that would be used for login to computer database systems such as any one of the business intervals, or you can prefer the computer business interval networks also. Excuse me. So that one magic cookies. Then after that they proposed the some other some some pros and cons they found in the magic cookies. That's why preferred the HTTP cookies. So in HTTP cookies that are repurposed versions of magic cookies. At the same time, the HTTP cookies, it is whatever currently use the manage our online experiments, or you can consider any one of the applications. It is also what n numbers of peoples we can use this type of cookies. I mean the normal HTTP cookies. So the HTTP cookies are internet cookies are built specifically for the internet web browsers to for any one of the tracking personalizations or saving some informations or considering the user sessions details. So these are all the reasons we are preferring the um, cookies HTTP cookies. Then after that, so look at this. In HTTP cookies, we are preferring some methods and some purposes also available. So the methods are quickie method. Quickie method contain two parameters like string name and string values. The purpose is the purpose is the constructor to create a cookie within the given name and corresponding values. So what are all the cookies used for? So we need to consider that. So the website, you can imagine some websites. So website uses the HTTP cookies to any one of the streamline for your applications. So without cookies, these are all activities are not possible. So the basically how cookies are intended to be used for using this cookies. Yeah, so intended to be used in the sense we can consider the session management, personalizations, tracking details. The session management in the sense, for example, one sec. Session management in the sense, how can I say? You can consider the quickies, let us website recognized by the users and recall their individual logins. Okay, if it is a session cookies recognize the user and recall their individual login informations and preferences. So this like n numbers of applications is adaptable for a session management. Then after that, personalization point of view, I mean, as a students, we are developing personalizations now. Customized advertising in the main way of cooking is used for any one of the personalized techniques. So personalized techniques, consider the part of the sites or cookies used this data to help the any task creations. So depends on the user perceptions, we can prefer that type of cookies. Then after that, So what are the one sec. Look at this. Cookies privacy issues. So in order to focus the cookies privacy issues, we have to know the cookies difference between the session and persistent. So then only it is possible to focus the cookies privacy issues. So session cookies, in the sense, it is used only while navigating the website. At that time, we can prefer the session cookies. They are stored in random access memory and are written in any one of the hardware devices also. Some extendable hardware devices also we are preferring. But in the persistent cookies, so remains on the computer identity, although the many datas are automatically removed data from the your entire sessions. Say for example, authentication and tracking. So authentication point of view, if you are preferring the persistent cookies, um, track whether the user logged into and under your names and corresponding details, they are streaming login information. Once if you are logging into the site, the entire informations are streamed. So the user don't have to remember the site password. Okay, so this one coming under the authentication part. So while without preferring the cookies, this type of issues will come. So tracking point of view, so these cookies track the multiple visit to the same site over the time. So some online transactions are you can consider some online applications. So for examples, cookies to track visit the particular user. Here n numbers of users are accessing. Cookies wants to track the particular user is an include the pages and product used. Okay. So the information they gain allow them to suggest other items that might interest the visitors. Okay. So based on this, preferring the cookies, either authentications or tracking or session cookies or persistent cookies. So look at this. As a client, HTTP request to intended site, corresponding site. The website provides the requested content. Yeah, so these details intimated to the client. And after that, for the website provider, any banners, as you can, this one is considered like a separate application. This one separate applications. So client request and corresponding website response. So here, look at this. Authentication cookies we are considering. Here, tracking cookies or session identity cookies are we are preferring. So cookies privacy issues. Due to privacy concerns, the many users block the cookies. So blocking may be fine-tuned. Okay, so it depends on the browsers or blocking mechanisms may be different. Blocking on third-party cookies or blocking based on online privacy policy. I mean, depends on the user perceptions. The user will prefer some type of cookies. Some alternative cookies for maintaining the sessions also are available. That concept will come under the URL rewriting. Thank you. Any queries? Students?
Uh, Thank you, ma'am, for the great and enlightening session. Now we move on to the question and answer session. And just put the question in the chat box.
Students, you can post your queries in the chat box so that it will be answered by our guest. Suja, there is, Divya, there is a question there regarding cookies.
Um,
Um, um, um, I could see a comment regarding cookies. Can you be specific on your query, Zavbot?
Ma'am, they are having
Ma'am,
doubt
having doubt
regarding cookies,
regarding
ma'am.
cookies, ma'am. Yes. Can you be specific on your doubt so that Nithya ma'am can answer it? Yeah.
And another
And
question is
another
there,
question
ma'am.
is there, ma'am.
Many of the browser
Many of the
allows
browser
cookie.
allow.
Is there any problem of blocking cookies in website, ma'am?
No, not a problem. If you are blocking now, tracking point of view somewhat difficult.
Okay, ma'am. Any other question? You can put on the chat box. Ma'am,
Ma'am,
another question is
another
there,
question
ma'am.
is there, ma'am. Yes.
If they're using a ad blocker, ma'am, they can't able to visit some of the website, ma'am, due to ad
Ad
blocker.
ad blocker?
Actually, they are using ad blocker, ma'am,
Hmm.
and due to that, they are can't able to visit some of the website, ma'am. Actually,
See the ad blocker concept. This one, each of other extension, one at a time. Depends on the browsers. This one only focusing the Chrome browser. Okay, so depends on the browser. Some type of features will not be accepted. I mean, one of the extensions disabled, or you can change the property setting. So enable each of other extensions on a time. That is, I mean, in your ad block, while preferring the ad blocker, if you are enabling the some other activities now, automatically some add-ons issues will come. So that time restarting your Chrome browsers or Opera browsers, then you can change the settings part, then you can include.
okay, ma'am. Any other question? You can put in the chat box. Ma'am,
Ma'am,
another question
another
is there,
question is
ma'am.
there, ma'am.
What is any work of cookies in ethical hacking, and what is the use of the other field, ma'am?
I couldn't hear.
What is the work of cookies in ethical hacking, and uh, what is the use of other field, ma'am?
What is the work? Is ethical hacking? What is the use of other field? So ethical hacking point of view, we can prefer the uh, cyber security and penetration testing. So these are all the parts we can prefer this type of concepts.
Okay. Ma'am, another question is there. Where can we find implementation of HTTP, ma'am?
Where can we find the implementation? Implementation in the sense I couldn't catch the point clearly. Find the implementation of HTTP in the sense? HTTP for what?
Ma'am, you mean that hosting, ma'am? Actually.
Because HTTP runs top of the operating systems. HTTP runs TCP implemented in the network stack of your OS operating systems. That's why I'm expecting the correct question. The question still not yet completed, na? Because the HTTP designed for the server to simply sit and wait for the any request. I mean request in the sense the possible data, what are all the data you included in the HTML page. At the same time, response also, what are all the data we included in the from the server side. So all the web servers implemented in the HTTP. Via the HTTP only we are calling either server or servlet programs.
Ma'am, another question is there. What is the use of WebKit in CSS3, ma'am?
Webkit.
Ah, yes, ma'am.
Webkit for CSS3.
Ah, yes, ma'am.
CSS3 at the same time HTML version. HTML version pa? Because
Ma'am,
WebKit
they didn't mention HTML version, ma'am.
because WebKit is a web browser rendering how to say rendering engine. This one is mainly used for Safari. But as a Safari, na normal HTML one version 1 and version 2 will not support. So Safari and Chrome browsers only will support the WebKit and CSS3. Other IE browsers or some other browsers will not support. So the WebKit prefix and CSS selectors concept or selector properties, that is only engine intended to the any one of the process. So depends in CSS3 incorporated with which HTML version. So based on that we will follow that.
Ma'am, another question is there, ma'am.
HTTP is most important cookies not explained. Question is not clear. You can tell one more time. HTTP is most important in cookies. Or not? HTTP is more important only. HTTP is more important only, na? See, the HTTP is always more important while preferring the cookies because, as a necessary part of any web browsing, are HTTP cookies. That one helps the web developers to give the any one of the personal information or convenient website visits. Again and again, we are visiting the website now. So the cookies let website remember all those things. At the same time, once we are logging into the website or any one of the shopping cart, or you can consider some of the application, the cookies will holding the entire informations. So that one important only. At the same time, HTTP cookies, I mean the HTTP cookies tag added all the browser details. I mean which applications, which browsers we are using. So browser cookies that prevent the client-side scripting from accessing all the data. At the same time, we are using the HTTP protocol for that quickies. I mean the generating the quickies. That one helping the same time migrate the risk of client-side script and accessing the protected quickies also. Okay, so this is at the same time this one making the quickies more and more secure. These are all the reasons compulsory preferring the HTTP, because we have to carry out the entire information. Should I accept cookies from other sites? What you are telling? They can't infect the computers with the virus or some other malware. Depends on that. Are you ready to accept that? You can accept that cookies. Because cyber attacks or some other attack, hijack wikis are enabled access your browser now. It is very dangerous lies. The ability to identify your browsing details. Any browser historic details, it is very difficult to identify. So the data in quickies does not change. At the same time, quickies themselves are not harmful. So students, we have to understand that they can't interact with the computers, with the viruses or some other malware. You are ready to accept that, you can accept. Definitely. See, some website does not support ad blockers now. The reason is some extensions will not support. Some say for sometimes the students will run the programs like XSLT programs or XML parser programs or XQuery programs. So that type of programs, if you are running now, some students directly prefer the IE browser. That time the IE browsers will not support some add-ons concept. So in order to support that add-on concept now, you have to enable that activity behind your screen. I mean in your setting part you have to change. Then only possible. Some website does not support, because if you are accessing some government related sites, or if you are accessing hospitals related sites, if you are accessing school related sites now, already the administrator they have given the restrictions for some other tools or some other add-ons. That type of sites will not accept. You can consider our Indian military site. That site also will not accept it. That time we have preferred some the hacking details. What is the difference between session storage and local storage? For which HTML version? Version? Because normal HTML version 1 session storage is not available. So logical storage in the sense, logical or session storage, that one accomplish the extract the same thing of data having the same application programming interface. So both are same type of data and same thing have a same application programming interface. At the same time, session storage, the data is persisted only for the Windows tab is closed. Once the Windows tab is closed now, while the local storage of data is persistent until the user manually clear the browser cache. This is the apt difference between session storage and local storage. If it is a local storage, data is persisted until the user manually clear the browser cache details until the web applications clear the data. Say for example, using Tomcat server, if I'm creating some applications, in that applications the role of local storage na, as a manual point of view, if I'm eliminating some data, that one coming under the local storage. But the session storage depends on API. Data is persistent until the Windows tab closed. What is session state in HTML? See, session state in the sense, this is one session. Look at this. This is one session. In 2 o'clock, session started. 1:30, session is running. 3 o'clock, session is going to be expired. 4:30, session destroyed. In HTML, for which applications you are using the session depends on that your answer will come. Say for example, in your with the HTML you are creating some applications like hospital management systems. Hospital management systems, you are creating some login. You are creating login as a user. I am accessing that login. That time sessions creator, one session creator. As a doctor will involve with some patient. Periodically, the doctor updating the prescription details over the cloud network. That is one session. So depends on which context as a client I'm creating the session. That is session. Document type declaration is normal, not required, but in project point of view, you are writing na compulsory. You have to write the document type declaration. Document type declaration, try to write. What are the new form elements in HTML5? New form elements in the sense, one minute. New form elements. So new form elements, you can consider data list, progress, meter, keygen. So these are all new form elements for HTML5, but this one adapt with CSS3. These are all new form elements. So out in the sense, out representation. Is there any need to change the web browser to support? Definitely. If I am creating one simple website with the help of normal HTTP version 1, I am creating one website. I would like to host in Opera browser. The tags will not supported by that browser. So some advanced tags required to adapt with your application. So where you host your application depends on that. You have to select the tags. Normal HTML version 1, version 2. I didn't use the CSS concept, selector concept. These are all the concepts are animated related concept I didn't use. But I would like to host on my web page to the Opera browser. The browser will not support. That time compulsory we have to use some standard version tags, then only possible to host it.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for your patience in answering all the questions. Thank you. Divya, we'll proceed to the vote of thanks session, ma. Thank
Okay,
you.
ma'am. I call Mr. Zayed Rasul Khan, fourth year, final year BTech IT, to deliver the vote of thanks.
A very good evening to all. This is Zayed Rasul Khan from the Department of IT, final year, Dr. MGR Educational and Research Institute. Once a great man said, If you are more fortunate than others, build a longer table than a taller fence. It gives me an immense pleasure to deliver the vote of thanks. I take this opportunity to thank those who have directly and indirectly contributed for this event, and all the dignitaries who have a great source of motivation. I would like to thank our speaker, Mrs. K. Nithya, who honored this session with her inspirational and extraordinary thoughts related to advanced web technologies. Thank you, ma'am. Then I thank our Honorable President ERACS Arun Kumar, who has been a great continuous support system. I also thank our Vice Chancellor Dr. S. Geeta Lakshmi, Registrar Dr. C.B. Palanivel, Additional Registrar Dr. V. Cyril Raj, and Dean ENT Dr. N. Etiraj for their guidance and encouragement in all our efforts. My heartfelt thanks to my head faculty members and colleagues who worked hard to ensure that this event becomes a milestone. My special gratitude to the distinguished participants without whom this event wouldn't be a resounding success. Thank you.
Participants, kindly fill the feedback form